I'm Chris Caldwell. I'm a Shelby County School Board member for District 1. Been a lifelong Memphian and actually an alumni of Memphis City Schools, and have three brothers and sisters that also went through the school system. Graduated in '70. So when I was in the school system is right when integration started. So it wasn't a big deal for me that black kids were going to the schools. Just looked at it as another group of people that were going to school. Have maintained some relationships with a lot of the black people that I went to school with, and remember distinctly asking one of them, I said, "Well, you guys never come to the reunions, why is that?" And he said, "Well, Chris, it wasn't that great of an experience for us." He said, "Kids were spitting on the floor when we walked down the halls." Now, I never witnessed any of that, but there were groups of kids that would do ugly things. Memphis City Schools at one point was a high-performing school district, and we went to White Station High School, and that was, it was competitive with all the private schools.
What happened?
Dysfunctional bureaucracy was part of it, and just people not stepping up and providing the resources for kids, and all the adult issues that are, a microcosm of our country. I'm for good schools, period. I don't care what form it takes, as long as it's a good school. Now, the parts of the charter movement that I somewhat disagree with is the assumption that, all charters are good and just the format is what drives the performance, and that's not the case. We've looked at performance of schools, the public schools versus charter schools, and there's not very much difference in terms of the percentages. We have a few more that are higher performing as a percentage of the overall schools available. But generally, the dispersion of results, is very similar to what we experience in just traditional public schools. To the extent that we can collaborate, that we can, share successes and learn from each other, I think that is the biggest benefit of having charter schools. I think, you look at a state like Tennessee, where we are woefully underfunded. I think somewhere in the range of 45th in the country. That makes it, difficult for all of us. So we're going back and forth about an insufficient pie and trying to figure out better ways to split it. That's why I think it's important that we collaborate about how we share the funding and how we allocate the funding for the students and the needs of the students. It's unrealistic to think that we can solve all the needs of our diverse student body without adequate funding. People like to say, well, poverty is not an excuse, but it's a very important factor. And if you look at things like just the amount of words that a child goes to school with, from a poor family versus a middle class or upper class family, they're in the tens of thousands of smaller, tens of thousands of less words in their vocabulary. And then there's also, you can look at the stress in a family from poverty, and it can have permanent damaging effects on children and their ability to learn as they matriculate through the system, the supports that aren't there in the community later on, to keep them in school. I'm hopeful. If I wasn't an optimist, I wouldn't still be on the school board after serving for 6 years. We just have to keep plugging away at it and fighting for resources for the children, and make honest efforts to work in the best interests of the children, and let that take us where it leads us, not being driven by people that have a hidden agenda, have a bigger plan that they don't want to be transparent about. I think we found that there were about 40,000 kids that start out behind and stay behind. For us not to address that, you're going to be spending money on supports that you wouldn't have to if these children got a good education that provided them with this, the skills to succeed, in a career, but more importantly, to become functioning, active, vibrant members of society, and that can affect, how legislation gets passed, how people are treated, and the laws that are put in place.